What's up, Mortgage Coach community? Today, I am doing my first white belt to black belt interview, and I picked Greg Anderson. So, Greg, what's up, my brother?
How you doing, Dave? Great day here in Seattle. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's a great day in Portland, and then I'm after this interview heading to the airport and going to LA. So, a little nicer weather,
Nice.
but good time in Mortgage Coach land. So,
Yes.
so, so, Greg, I'm doing this series of interviews. Part of it is to educate our Mortgage Coach community on, like, what is a white belt loan officer advisor? What is a black belt? You know, what are the moves that a black belt could do? But to teach them how to go from white belt to black belt. So first, before we get into some of your black belt moves, let's make sure everybody knows what kind of production you're doing. You're in Seattle. How much business are you doing this month, September of 2019?
Yeah, so September will close just about 28 loans for a little over 10 million. So it's good times for sure. We generally, on an annual basis, will close somewhere between 80 and 90 million here. And then in our branch, where I've got one other loan officer, so we'll exceed 100 million in the branch for sure.
What do you think you'll do personally in 2019? What's your goal
Probably,
at this point?
my goal is 100. I don't know if I'll hit 100. I'll be maybe just shy of that. So I'm thinking maybe 90 to 100 right in there.
Good. Well,
Yeah.
you are a baller. And to me, more important than the number of families that you serve and more important than the volume and the money you make, it's the quality of the advice that you deliver. And
Mhm.
Greg has done over 1,000 total cost analysis. That means 1,000 times he's taken families through a mortgage experience that goes beyond the transaction. Most loan officers provide what I call the triangle of the transaction, which is, here's your monthly payment, here's your interest rate, and here's your cash to close. And Greg goes beyond that, and he provides the star of Mortgage Coach advice. And that star includes rate, it includes payment, it includes cash to close, but it shows the cost over time. If it's relevant to the family, the cost over 3 years, then 3 years. If it's relevant to the family, that's 5 or 7 years, 5 or 7 years, but total cost over that time. And then whenever it makes sense, like that's one of the things that a black belt knows how to do. Sometimes it makes sense to show, hey, what if you took this loan versus this loan, this cost over time, and then you reinvested that in the mortgage? Now, what decision is the best for you? Or let's say you took that and you applied it to an investment account, a mortgage offset account. You know, so the black belt can do the star of advice every time, every client. So Greg, let's get into a black belt interview. And first of all, give me your thoughts on that. I mean, this is, I think, the first time publicly I've actually used that metaphor of triangle of transaction, star of advice. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it's great. It really is, because as you and I have talked before, I think going forward, we're going to be disrupted by companies that are going to offer the lowest rate, the lowest cost. And so we have to find other ways to be valuable to our clients. And so, what I'm using, I use the reinvestment strategy a lot right now, especially, and showing people exactly what you're talking about. And what it does is it quiets the noise from all those companies. When you pull credit, you've got the trigger leads and that. So companies are calling your clients as soon as you pull credit. Kind of quiets the noise down when you're giving them additional advice that your competition is not going to be giving them right up front.
Yeah, and so the bullseye for the black belt is to get a family to go, I never thought of it that way before.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought I just needed the lowest interest rate, and I never thought of my mortgage like that. And then, the pinnacle of success is star. And star is a metaphor for something they'll always remember. That's what star is a metaphor. Something they'll always remember. And if you give them a consultation experience that they will always remember, you know what? You don't need to be the low cost leader. You are a premium provider. But anything less than the star, and you really are a transactional loan officer. So expect to lose some loans at point of sale, expect to get rate shopped, expect to give price exceptions, And you know what? Expect to be a low-cost provider. And our community is mortgage planners who are local that are bringing value above and beyond the lowest cost provider. So let's get into it. Walk us through a story. Well, first of all, did you have something to add to that? And then I want to go through a story and a strategy.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with, let's see here.
What are we looking at here?
So anyway, this is interesting. So you're right, Dave. I really believe that you have to provide that additional service and that additional care for the client. And sometimes the reality is it can take a little bit more time, but I don't experience the same rate shopping once I do take that care and that time with the client. And I also find that the possibility of a referral from that client goes up as well. So this one's actually pretty interesting. So May is a client of mine. She works in an office for the VA. She is a veteran herself, and so she has a VA loan. And so I called her. She closed. They closed on their home last year, her and her husband. And I called her and I said, "Hey, May, you really need to refinance because you guys are at like 4 3/4, and we're getting people on a VA IRRRL loan. We're giving them 3.5, 3 1/4. Just depends on the situation." And so, she immediately went on the defense, which I know we all hear these stories, but I said, "Okay, cool. Tell me your concerns." And she says, "Well, one of my coworkers tried to refinance. The company was charging her $20,000 to refinance. I read on the internet that refinancing is a scam, all these things," right? So I was able to use a total cost analysis to show her where not only is refinancing not a scam, but it's absolutely imperative for her financial future that she refinances. So I think you can see on this, she was at 4 7/8. I showed her 2 different strategies. I showed her 3.5, and it was close costs were a little bit less, and then 3 1/4 because I wanted to show her, okay, you can have lower closing costs. It's just going to take a little bit higher rate, or we can go with the full closing costs and get you that 3 1/4 rate. But really, where the magic came into these scenarios is when I showed her what would happen if you took those same strategies, where you can see your savings on strategy 1 is $382 and you're $435 in strategy 2. But I said, what if you took those savings and you reapplied them? So strategy 3 is, this is what this would look like if, and I'm going to close out the video. As you see, I do videos for probably 90% of my transactions.
And time out for anybody that's going like, "Oh, what's a black belt at Mortgage Coach?" It's one, and I haven't decided the exact number. There's no doubt if you've done 1,000 TCA'S and you've added video, you're a black belt. But maybe it's 300 and you're a black belt. But if you aren't adding video, then you are not a black belt in mortgage advice. So we took away the video, but I just want everybody to know that is a move that a black belt mortgage advisor using Mortgage Coach does. They add video. So nice job. Show us what we're looking at.
And one thing I had last month, I had a client and they told me, "Hey, I'm shopping 5 different lenders." And they literally said, "Your video is what sold us on using you." So I love that. That's not a plug. It's just literally what a client said. And that makes you feel good when you're going that extra mile to do that. So anyway, what I showed them is strategy 3 is taking one of the strategy 1 and just making the same exact mortgage payment, okay? So what I showed them is net worth over 15 years. You look at their current loan. Remember, this client didn't want to refinance because they've heard it's a scam and it costs too much. And I showed them that their net worth in the next 15 years would go up by $100,000 by refinancing and making the same payment that they're already comfortable with, okay? That's strategy 3. Strategy 4 is I took that. They wanted the lower payment, so I said, "Okay, great. Let's go with the 3 1/4 rate." And instead of reinvesting that extra, to make up the difference between your current payment and your new payment, instead of reinvesting in the mortgage, let's throw that in an investment account. And so I used, very modest because I tend to be conservative, but I used a 3% return, and you can see their net worth is 663,000. So over that 15 years, they're going to get an additional $9,000 by investing at 3%. Now, if they could get 5 or 6%, wow, what a bigger difference for them.
So Greg, do me a favor, click on the
Yeah.
more information there.
Yeah.
And then, the black belt knows how to do the prepay your mortgage and accelerate debt reduction. They know how to do the reinvest the difference in an offset account. I do click on the reinvestment tab. I want to make sure you guys see it. This is where it shows the details of exactly what he did. And you can see at the bottom there in the investment account, they'll have $98,862 based off 3%. But I also recommend when you do this reinvestment strategy, you get the number from the client or the client and a financial planner. So you're not like selling rates like, everybody gets X percent. You're like collaboratively, what do you think we should put in here? This is a very conservative number. I interview a lot of top mortgage planners that collaborate with their financial planners. 6% is not an uncommon number to see here.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're helping a family make a mortgage decision that not only helps them pick the right loan, it helps them build wealth with real estate faster. And that's where you become a black belt in mortgage advice. Anything else you want to add here, Greg?
Yeah, just want to, I think this happens to us every day where you have people who are very skeptical when we call them about refinancing. There's a lot of information out there, and anybody who owned a home during the heyday years in the mid 2000s, they think refinance equals I'm pulling all my cash out and I'm now going to lose my home here, in a downturn, right? So this really helped me illustrate to these people how not only was it not a risk, but it was actually a terrible move not to refinance. So, and I was able to approach it from different angles. So that's one of the reasons that I love using the Mortgage Coach TCA.
Cool. So I want to reaffirm some key concepts. If you are giving, a fee worksheet, you're delivering the triangle of transaction to a family. Payment, interest rate, cash to close. If you're delivering a mortgage coach experience, which is a good habit to have, you're delivering the triangle of trust. You're giving that payment, that rate, that cash to close, but you're also showing the cost over time. Remember, a time that's relevant to this family member, 15 years was a window, but it could have been 5 and 20 years, over time. And then you're either showing a prepay or an investment strategy. That is what a mortgage planner does versus a transaction. So Greg, I know you got to get a coaching session in like 7 minutes. Do we have time for one more story? And I'll let you pick whether we do a purchase or a refi.
I'll just do another refi just because I feel like that's pertinent right now to us. I know we're always working on purchases, but we get a lot of pushback on refis from clients. So let me do that. Yeah. I love that star analogy that you've come up with, Dave. I really think that helps put what we do into perspective, and I'm going to steal that if it's okay with you and use that on some of my my marketing. So
I insist. I'm glad that you are.
So this is another refinance. This is a client, an engineer he bought last year. So you can see his rate is 5%. It was a no-brainer for him to refinance. We locked him in at 3.5 and got all the way down to the end. And once, payoffs come in and everything, he was like, okay, well, I didn't really want my loan to go up as much as it did. And so I said, great, let's talk about some different options here for you. So strategy one, you'll see here, this is if you can see his cash to close is basically 0. So this is if we roll everything in, okay? Strategy two, this is if you pay everything and you just keep your payoff at what it came back at, okay? Strategy three, I said, all right, you are going to miss a payment, you're going to skip a payment, and you're also going to get a refund of your current reserve account back. So totaling up roughly what that would be, I had him come in with that so that he could keep his balance low. Okay. This conversation is happening every single day. People don't want to feel like they're going backwards in their loan. So they don't want to have to add a bunch of costs. So again, I showed him what he wanted to see. That's the first three strategies. And then I showed him something he didn't ask about, but it's something that I insisted that we discuss. And that is, how about if you're worried about what your loan looks like over time? How about if we make a strategy 4 here, where we take strategy 1, you don't come in with any cash, okay, but we just keep making the same payment that you've been making currently, that you're fine making, right? And so what you're going to see there is, if you go down to the freedom point, he goes from just under 29 years to just over 22 years. He's saving 7 years off his mortgage. That's huge, people. If you take the principal and interest payment and you calculate that, what is that over 7 years? That's a huge difference, right? So, and not paying anything more than he's currently paying. I think that's really what is helping me get from that price to advice, is showing them something besides just a cost sheet. And I'm taking, a lot of times I'll take that cost sheet from another lender and I'll just put it in as a strategy, right? So
Yeah.
I'm putting it into my world.
Yeah. And then if you look at that column that's in the green, you're taking them from currently $347,000 in interest cost to $215,000. And by the way, you could also change that. So instead of it being interest, you show net worth. And I can assure you his net worth is increasing. If you could click on the more information under the green long term.
Yeah.
So again, you're showing him in detail the cash savings and look at the principal balance. Again, a major opportunity. So let's close that out real quick.
Okay.
I'm going to show my screen one more time. By the way, if you could share these strategies. I also want to at least cover high level on a purchase, because this is the target. Teach people something they hadn't already considered. That's what a leader does. That's a great gift. Like, hey, this is what you want. This is what you asked me for. And what about this? And then I'll guarantee you, of all the consultations he's ever had with a loan officer, possibly of all the financial consultations he's ever had with anyone, this guy walked away with a star moment. Something they'll always remember. So again, that's leadership. That's a black belt in mortgage advice. I think it's obvious that Greg's a black belt, 1,000 total cost analysis. And he could do this with anybody, first time home buyer, star experience, move up home buyers that's sitting on the fence. Should I sell and buy? He could deliver star experience. So any sales situation he gets into, rate and term refi, cash out refi, debt consolidation refi, Greg can deliver these options. He can put a video on it. Greg, show us a quick purchase option strategy, just so we can get a feel for how you rock with just a standard vanilla pre-approval strategy.
Yeah, this is one right here. I just had some past clients come back to me, and they just wanted to know, hey, what are rates looking like if we buy a $720,000 home and we put $175,000 down? And so, basically showed them just the vanilla. This is what I call vanilla, but it helps, even though it's just a basic, here's what the rate is with no points. Here's what it is with a little bit of points. And here's what it is with a little bit more. For these folks, I was able to send this over to them to get the conversation started. Now, in my videos, I will be very vague, because really what I'm trying to do is get them on the phone. And I know that might be different than some people, because it does take more time, but I feel like if I can get them on the phone looking at their laptop while I'm on mine, now it's that real-time experience that I love about the Mortgage Coach TCA, where I can click and highlight numbers and rates and all kinds of things, and they're super impressed by it. So anyway, help me get there with them.
Another black belt move, knows how to use Mortgage Coach Live, so that whatever the family sees on their desktop or their mobile device, it's getting that highlight. So guys, let's close out this interview. Little homework assignment for everybody. We've got this page called Mortgage Coach Strategies right here. And really, this is a bunch of black belt moves. Like every single person showcased in here is a black belt in mortgage coach. Josh Meadow, Denise Donahue, Craig Strent. I'll make sure if I don't have one, Greg Anderson, move up buyer. So everybody that we showcase, black belt in mortgage advice, if you clicked on one of these, and this applies to all of them, not only does it have an interview, so you can get scripts, ideas, and concepts, you look down below, it has links to actual TCA'S. So this is my first official mortgage coach, go from white belt to black belt in mortgage advice. I hope you got value. If you want to see me do more interviews around this series and really delineate what's the difference between white belt and yellow belt, what's the difference between green belt and brown belt, and what's the path to being a black belt, let me know. I'm kind of gauging the mortgage coaches, the mortgage coach community interest. Do you really want me to nerd out on white belt to black belt? And if you think I should interview you, or you know someone that I should interview, let me know down below, PM me, comment. Greg, any parting words before we wrap this up, brother?
No, I just want to thank you again for having me on, and always love to share with the mortgage coach community.
All right. Well, if you got value, give us a like, share it with your mortgage friends. Greg, say hi to Jeremy. I think you're going into your coaching session.
Will do, man.
You could tell Jeremy I made you 2 minutes late. All right.
I'll send you the fine.
All right. Exactly. I'll pay it.
All right. See you, Dave.
Later, brother.